Okay, let's go ahead and go through the final parts of question 1 for the Module 1 homework that involve contingent consideration. Again, we have the same scenario as before, where big companies acquiring a little company. This time they're paying $600,000 in cash and giving either additional cash or shares of stock if certain sales growth targets are met over the next 3 years. Let's go ahead and start with the case of the cash consideration. So basically what we have is we have some subjective probabilities that we've estimated that these various earnings targets will be met. So for example, we think that there's a 20% chance that sales growth will be less than 2%, and if that's the case, there will be a 0 additional cash payment. We think there's a 30% chance the sales growth will be between 2 and 4%, and if that's the case, there will be a $20,000 additional cash payment, and so on down the line. Now, we need to find out what's the expected value of this additional cash payment. And what we'll do is we'll multiply each potential payout by the probability of that payout occurring. So 20% times 0, 30% times 20,000, 30% times 50,000, and so on. We sum those up and get a total expected value of $39,000. And so that's the expected value of this promised additional payment. Now, that $39,000 is guaranteed to be incorrect. There's no way we're going to pay $39,000. We'll either pay 0, or we'll pay $20,000, or we'll pay $50,000, or we'll pay $70,000, or we'll pay $150,000, but we will not pay $39,000. So our first step is to figure out, again, what's the goodwill or bargain purchase in this? The total consideration that we're giving up is $600,000 in cash plus a future contingent payment with an estimated value of $39,000 for a total expected payout of $639,000. The fair value of the assets is $570,000 again for goodwill of $69,000. So we'll record the acquisition, and just to make life easier, let's go ahead and instead of recording all the individual assets and liabilities, let's just record the net assets of $570,000 plus $69,000 in goodwill plus our two forms of payment. We pay out $600,000 now, and we have a contingent liability for $39,000. 3 years later, we find that actual sales growth was 5%. That falls within that middle band. So we're going to pay out $50,000. So we write a check for $50,000. That pays off that contingent payment liability, and the extra $11,000 is a loss. Now, just as an aside, this contingent payment liability is a long-term liability. Therefore, it should be recorded at present value. So if this was really being done carefully, we would record the contingent payment liability at $39,000 at its present value, and then we would accrue interest on it each year as we got closer to the expected payment date. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to case D now, where it's the same scenario, but now we're going to give shares of big company stock. We're going to follow the same basic procedure. First, we have to figure out what's the expected number of shares. So again, multiply the probability of each sales target being met with the additional shares associated with that level of sales growth to get the expected value. So we add all these up, and there are 1,010 is the expected additional number of shares. Current share price is $40, so the expected value of this award is $40,040. Again, first thing we have to do is figure out the goodwill or bargain purchase. So again, we're going to take the total value of the compensation, $600,000 in cash plus $40,040 of this expected additional equity issuance, for a total of $640,040. The fair value of the assets is once again $570,000 for goodwill of $70,040. So we record the acquisition, and again, net assets at fair value, we record the goodwill, we record the cash payment, and now we're going to create a new equity account. We have promised to give additional shares of stock in the future if certain conditions are met. So this is an equity-like claim. It is not a liability, except in the sort of intuitive sense that we have an obligation to give out shares of stock, but it's recorded as an equity account. And as long as we're here, As an equity account, the present value is not an issue here. There's no present value of equity accounts. So we will record this additional paid-in capital at $40,040. 3 years later, when we meet that 5% sales growth target, we see that we're going to give out 1,200 additional shares of stock. So we'll get rid of that paid-in capital contingent share agreement, issue 1,200 shares of common stock with a $1 par value, and the remainder of that $40,400 is paid-in capital in excess of par. Now notice that the share price on the date of this actual award is irrelevant. This contingent share agreement was valued on the date of acquisition at $40 per share. That number is cast in stone. If the share price in the interim falls to zero, or if the share price in the interim rises to $10 million per share, that's irrelevant from an accounting perspective. We valued these shares at the date of acquisition value of $40 per share.